That's perfect because we are here on Political Junkies Live to talk about the great piece you published over the weekend at MS Now. I'm going to give our listeners the entire title of it, RFK Jr. and Kid Rock's MAHA Manosphere Mashup. And I know you don't write your own titles, but it's a great title. And why don't you tell us what the article is about?
Sure. So thank you also for reading and inviting me on. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Okay, so the article is about a video that for your eyeballs, viewers, I hope you have not seen, but I should get you up to speed on it. Basically, RFK Jr., our Secretary of Health and Human Services, made a fitness public service announcement with Kid Rock. And essentially what they did is they were in Kid Rock's private gym. It's supposed to, I think, look a little like a 90s workout video. It's like rock out to workout. And they're doing all kinds of different fitness activities or wellness activities to the lyrics of this song. And it's all, like RFK it's weird. RFK is in jeans in a cold plunge. They're guzzling whole milk in this grotto hot tub. They're like weirdly working out in a sauna. It's very strange. So that's the objet of analysis there. But the argument that I made is that, this piece went totally viral. Everybody was talking about it, but they were mostly just making fun of it, which there's a lot to mock in there. But I actually, as a historian of fitness and a close observer of RFK Jr., to me, it seemed there's kind of more to it. And so the basic argument of the piece is that whatever you think of MAHA, early MAHA really had this kind of hopefulness and idealism that if you just exercised and ate clean food, like you could be this like wonderfully self-actualized, healthy person and healthy American. That kind of idealism is actually very familiar in the history of federal public service announcements. And so I wanted to draw that connection and then also say what a break this is from that. And so it kind of both charts that history and also kind of gives a picture of the rupture too in like, 900 words or something. So.
Well, and Natalia, you're the perfect person to have written this piece because of your book, Fit Nation, which came out a couple of years ago, but it's still selling like hotcakes. Listeners, I want to tell you, I'm putting a link so you can buy Natalia's book. Everybody loves it. I love it. It's selling very widely. It's not for academics only. It's written beautifully, and it really charts the history of the rise of fitness in the United States from a moment in the turn of the century when actually fitness was seen as not very good for people to the almost present when we can't get away from fitness. Now, Natalia, I want you to just spitball with me a little bit on why RFK Jr. and Kid Rock actually seem like the wrong messengers for a video about health.
Got it. I will say if I had to rank them in terms of the wrong messengers, I would put Kid Rock way lower on the bad messenger hierarchy, RFK Jr. Right. But I mean, together in this video in particular, they seem like such bad messengers because like the activities that they're participating in are so clearly just like random accessories for this boys' weekend like montage that they're making, right? There's nothing in there that actually is one accessible to most people. This is a private gym with a sauna and a grotto and a cold plunge, but also like there's nothing really kind of instructional about it. But I'll say that Kid Rock, for the most part, I mean, Kid Rock, whose music does the backdrop, is the soundtrack for this. He literally, I'm going to paraphrase, but it's a tribute to, I think he calls it like the meth whores and the crackheads and the hookers and he's calling out all different kinds of drugs and alcohol. So he is not the model of healthy living, like however you want to cast it. There's that piece of it. And then RFK Jr., I mean, at one point, I think he would have been a decent ambassador for this. But, ever since he really linked up with the Trump administration, he has leaned so far into promoting downright unhealthy behaviors, whether that is vaccine skepticism. The recent hottest thing right now is kind of letting big pesticide like run rampant, which was something he said he was flat out against. So both of them really right now are not, I think, the appropriate champions of healthy living any way you slice it. And I say this, having been, yes, very critical of the Trump administration, but also having, I think, held on for longer than a lot of liberals to the fact that there really is something in MAHA, in that kind of ideology, which is very good. And a lot of people will whisper that and they won't say it out loud. It is very good. But in this video, at least, we see none of that. And we only see the kind of like grossness, which so many others have commented on.
Well, and there's another piece of it, Natalia, where in a way, RFK Jr.'s personal health regimen is not really about health. It's about not getting old or not appearing to look old. And I sort of looked it up and I thought, how does somebody have that body at 69? And the man uses steroids.
Yeah.
I mean, he says he doesn't. He says it's just bioidentical testosterone, but actually the FDA classifies bioidentical testosterone replacement as a steroid. So that is, and people use hormone replacement in very good ways, but I think people are not encouraged to use hormone replacement simply to get big abs, are they?
Right. I think you point out a really important slippage, which is all over this administration, which is the slippage between health and aesthetics. And there's no shame in wanting to live longer and be young. And everyone loves to rip on RFK Jr.'s push-up form or whatever. But I think he's over 70 now, actually. And I mean, he's doing a lot of stuff in the gym that I couldn't do now. And I'm much, much younger than him. So that's great. But I think that you're right that you point out that so much of what he seems to be into seems to be less about the performance and the function, the longevity and the health, and much more about the appearance of that. And we see that in all of the shirtless stuff. We see that across the administration. I mean, Pete Hegseth said it loud and clear, right? When he was yelling at the generals for being fat and not having the right look. I mean, to me, this is such a throwback to, I mean, the best version of the Trump administration on these issues would have been to really like reinvest in PE and to really bring a kind of like hearty, disciplined approach to physical exercise to be a national priority. Instead, most of what we've seen is one cutting all these bedrock public health measures that we have.
Right.
Also emphasizing a kind of health and fitness, which is primarily about aesthetics, not about health. And to me, that is so disappointing because we've come so far.
Right. And they're different things at different ages, too. I mean, I'm now taking at the local Y a TRX kettlebells course, which is called functional training, which is something that someone my age, which I will be blunt at 67, but you're supposed to do things like that so that you can continue to do things like bring your groceries in. The variety of things that keep you safe also keep you healthy when you're older. So fitness has a lot of functions for a lot of different age groups, and it means different things for different age groups. But for these guys, you're saying it's aesthetic, but it's also, and I think you make this point in your article, and you kind of bury the lead on this one. You're like, where are the girls and the women?
So,
Okay, so where are they?
okay, so on that front, it's funny. This is a little behind the scenes, but my editor actually cut a line where I said, actually, when Kid Rock and RFK are in their weird grotto, which is a total knockoff of Hugh Hefner's, I was like expecting at least some like bikini clad chicks to roam in there as like the accessories to this, and they're not even there, right?
Right.
To me, it's just there are no women in this story, right? And I don't expect every PSA to have women in it, but something that has been really remarkable and in the most depressing way has been the way that essentially all of the promotion of fitness that this administration has done, and this came from Trump announcing his new council with I now forget his name, not even the professional wrestler, but the like show wrestler, right? This is a guy who performs wrestling.
Okay.
Who I think also had a sexual assault charge against him. But in the airports, when it is, I was Sean Duffy and maybe Hegseth was there announcing pull-up bars. They made this like one awkward reference to how they're also going to have lactation rooms, but they're like no women there either. And to me, this is so crazy for lots of reasons. One, I mean, participation of women in fitness and sports is massive, and that's a huge development of our time. But these
Right.
guys also came in part into office saying they were the big defenders of women's sports. Okay, fellas, where are all the women and girls whose access to teams you apparently care so much about? They're not even worth it as accessories, right?
Right.
And not to such a soapbox, but I've spent years reading all of these kinds of sources from the federal government and otherwise. I almost long for the fact when I was like, oh, they're objectifying Kornikova, or they're only treating the women's soccer stars like they ask them their body weight. These women aren't even on the agenda right now. And to
Right.
me, that's really unfortunate and just sets us back so far when we could be moving forward.
Well, and we haven't seen anything from the Trump administration about my obsession during the Olympics, which was the amazing US figure skating team. I mean, they were wonderful and they were so full of joy. And you look at someone like Amber Glenn, for example, who totally blew her short program. She was in something like 18th after the short program. And she went out there and she just nailed it. And between the amazing legs she has, I mean, she's just one big muscle, that girl. But also her stick-to-itiveness, her capacity to focus and get the job done, even though the last time she had been on that ice, she had totally blown it. And it seems to me there are so many opportunities to look at women athletes and say, here are things we value. Here are things we want to teach young people. If you fail, you get up and you dust yourself off and you get back out there and you do it again until you got it right. So that's a huge missed opportunity. But you also talk about other missed opportunities. And you were on the fence about the MAHA thing because you did see some good in it, and it's not hard to see some good in it. What should they be doing right now?
Wait, can I say one thing about the Olympics and the
Yeah.
women? I don't know if you followed this rather minor storyline, but I've been a little obsessed with the hockey because I'm a hockey mom. And did you see that when Kash Patel was partying with the guys in the locker room of the men's team, and they get Trump on the phone, and he makes this comment of, "Oh, I'm going to invite you guys all to the State of the Union. I'm going to have to invite the women's team too, otherwise I'm going to get impeached." And it's like, really? And now actually everyone's mad at the hockey team for laughing at this. But I'm like, come on, the president is on the phone. You just won the gold medal. What are you going to do?
Right.
Like, just in the
Right.
moment, not that I think it's okay, but really, President
Yeah.
Trump? That's what
Yeah.
you had to say about women's athletes, these patriots who just won you a gold? Are you joking?
Right.
Yeah, I
One
think
of them who just lost his front teeth in the third period and then came back and scored the winning goal. And he's also the guy who got into the press conference and talked about Pride Day in the NHL and how much he values. I mean, the guy is just
also Jewish. How about
wonderful.
that? We love that.
Also Jewish. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. But let's stick with hockey just for a second too, because it sort of gets to a piece of what is so discordant about RFK Jr., which is the health advice that bumps up against a dramatically unhealthy lifestyle. I mean, it's not just the testosterone. It is widely believed that he's still doing a variety of drugs, some of which are prescribed and some of which are not prescribed. But, in the hockey locker room, to have the head of the FBI guzzling beer like a frat bro. I mean, don't we have something to say to young people about how alcoholism is actually not okay? That kind of celebration is super unhealthy and it's not a good relationship to alcohol.
Totally. I mean, I think that example bears it out. But I think that one of the things that's so in your face about it, or so special about it, is the in your faceness. Like forever, of course, there's a massive
Right,
connect between what the federal government is saying in their public service announcements.
right,
And what's actually going on the ground. I mean, RFK Jr. loves to invoke JFK, who really was the biggest federal champion of physical fitness. As everyone knows by now, JFK was struggling with every realm of health problems, was on all kinds of drugs. So
right.
like, there was a disconnect there. And that's existed for a long time. But I think that what's missing now, and like what MAHA seems to have completely given up, and it used to have, was that sense of at least like putting forward the idealistic version of things, at least promoting,
Right.
not drinking excessively, having a sort of sense of morality and civility. I mean, this video that I wrote about, I don't think I said this expressly, but Kid Rock flips off the camera. And as I mentioned, the
Right.
lyrics are all about drug abuse. And so to me, like, they're not even trying anymore. I'm not so naive to think, oh, whether it was Obama or Carter or Bush or any of these guys, they were all living this, perfect lifestyle where fitness equals morality. Absolutely not, of course. And that's a fantasy anyway. But there's something in that fantasy worth
Right.
promoting to a little kid, especially when the Olympics are happening and all of that is gone. It's like so gross. I don't even have the
Right.
right word for it. Disappointing.
Well, and also you do talk in the article about how a number of presidents, Jimmy Carter comes out and says to girls, "You're important too, and you need to participate too." He's also a runner. George W. Bush is a runner. George W. Bush talked about his struggles with alcoholism and drugs and how he overcame them. And, okay, he's a war criminal, but that was a good thing that he did. Ronald Reagan is out there chopping wood and riding horses. So there's a piece of this that as fitness has become more part of American culture, that presidents have been genuinely fit people. Obama was a genuinely fit person. But actually, Trump is not. And it seems like all of these people in the cabinet are cosplaying fitness,
Yeah.
but what their policies are pointing us in another direction. Now, Natalia, I want to play a little mind game here. Let's pretend we're both MAGA, okay? And we have MAGA values, and we're trying to promote a lot of MAGA things. What should be RFK's fitness policies that actually promote right wing values?
Okay, so I feel nervous about this because everything gets like spliced and diced, and someone's
Okay.
gonna right now and be like, I heard her say this. If I were MAGA, what I would think that this administration's fitness policies, they would be like this. I put on the voice now, right? You cannot be a good American or a moral person if you are not disciplined about exercise. Every single school in America is going to have every kid getting out there and running a mile. And they're going to do it in front of each other. And we're going to post the results of this. And they're going to get, awards for this that show that they're a good American. And if they can't because they're huffing and puffing, well, they're going to, have to do some extra work to this, because to be a good American is to be a fit American, and end of story. And we're putting our energy behind that. I mean, to me, that sort of civic morality around fitness is totally coheres with the version of conservatism that's been around long before MAGA.
Agreed. And it actually is a message that has come from both liberal and conservative administrations.
Yeah.
Readiness for war. I mean, that's a big thing that's happening during the Cold War. And it happens repeatedly. You can go back to the 19th century and you've got politicians saying we have to have universal military training because nobody's fit enough. Theodore Roosevelt saying we have to have football in the universities, even though people are getting their arms broken and their heads bashed in, because that prepares them for war. And so what you're saying is actually a consistent theme in American history that MAHA or MAGA could be adopting. All right, I got one for you. The families that work out together stay together. That actually working out can be a way that families can spend time together in incredibly healthy ways, that parents can like model good ways of being for their children, that keep their children away from destructive habits, and so on and so forth. So that fitness could be something that you promote as part of a pro-family movement, right?
Are you trolling me? Because I wrote that article for the Wall Street Journal about working out with my kids.
Okay.
Like, to steer them on the moral path.
Right.
Yes, fitness as a family activity, very wholesome and something that we can each learn from one another. So I wouldn't necessarily say that that's MAGA, but inherently, although we've come to think of family values as a conservative policy position. But I actually think this conversation between you and me, and you said it rather explicitly, so many of these values, connecting fitness with being a good person or a good American, are bipartisan and have been around since at least, yeah, Teddy Roosevelt, but I would say even more
Right.
strongly since probably Eisenhower. Um,
Right.
what I think the big rupture came with was Trump won. Because when Trump won came in, and I wrote about this way back then in not the Wall Street Journal, in the Washington Post and some other places, like Trump was different, right? He said that his friends who were working out were wasting their limited battery supply. I was
Right.
down double scoops, right? He was eating double scoops of ice cream and big
Right.
and he embodied this like older version, like older at a time version of a wealthy kind of fat cat rather than a hyper disciplined like triathlete.
Right.
And it was notable that when he did, and a lot of this, by the way, had to do with the fact I think that Michelle Obama was so into fitness and health, that this was like the anti-Obama thing. But I think even then, who was fitness for? Well, when he owned, I think it was Miss Universe, it was like, oh, she's put on some pounds, get her on the treadmill. It was always just about aesthetics. And so
Yep.
to me, I think the Trump one administration created this rupture with this older way of seeing fitness as part of being a good American across parties. And so then this time, when it comes back with MAHA and Hegseth and all this stuff, you both see like residue or vestiges of this old way, like Hegseth with military preparedness. But it also, you have kind of this tawdry Trumpiness where all of that sort of morality or wholesomeness is stripped away.
Mhm.
It's just about how you look. It's about looking hot. It's about dominating other people. It's about men exerting power. And so we lose some of that idealism as much as it had always been a little bit romanticized.
Well,
Right.
and that's why you can never talk about women, right? And I was thinking another place that MAHA could go would be that it's better for pregnant women to be fit. That in fact you will get through a pregnancy in better health and feeling safer and being safer if you continue to walk and swim and do a variety of things that you can do without harming your fetus. And that, of course, totally blends with this white nationalist, pro-natalist movement that's coming into my. I mean, that's what I don't understand is why don't they use this bully pulpit to actually tell Americans things that will make them more healthy?
Well, on the woman front, I mean, I tend to think, especially with, platforming Nick Fuentes, who wants to send us all to the gulag, we are moving away from anything that's even
Yeah,
or we see the thinness of even like the
yeah,
wife ideal or her permanence in this environment. And
right,
at least one segment of this world is moving very strongly to a just like anti-woman
right,
philosophy. So I think that's why we don't see it. But yeah, I agree. I mean, the other thing we haven't really said explicitly here, but why I think there was a lot of good in what MAHA could represent is also just this value of preventative health, whether it's for pregnant women or anyone.
right,
It
right,
is true that we have a chronic disease issue. It is true that because of the way our medical system is, kids get put on drugs after a 45-minute appointment and then are on them
right,
for years and years. That is not good. And they really identified that early. And
right,
that's earlier on, I was more sympathetic to those aspects. But even that stuff seems to be falling away. I mean, this new video to me, I hope is
right,
rock bottom. I'm sure it's not. But we've
right.
seen none of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely right. And of course, we do have a kind of national crisis in fitness right now and have for the past decade or so. There aren't enough people who can pass the physical test to be in the police, to be in the military. I mean, police forces are like sending people off to train. The military has these programs where you actually go to a boot camp in order to get in enough shape to do the first day of boot camp. So there actually is a fitness crisis in this nation that they don't seem to want to address at all. My question for you then is it the result of this kind of rejection of expertise? That if, in fact, they were to really promote fitness, they would have to ask a range of people what they really think and what is good for Americans.
I don't think that's the main problem because honestly, most Americans, I think at this point, kind of know what they should be doing. I
Yeah.
mean, this is controversial in some circles. Most of us, if we moved a little more and ate a little less sugar and processed food, we would generally improve our health. I'm not
Right.
that doctor, but I will say that that is generally true. So I do think the anti-expertise dimension doesn't help, but I think much more it's that American life for most people is not structured in a way to allow people to afford and eat
Right.
healthful food or engage in these healthful activities. I mean, I'm like a broken record with this stuff, but it's so easy to be like, well, anybody can go running, just go outside. It's free. Well, okay, what happens when you live in an unsafe neighborhood? You have to commute an hour and a half to work because you can't afford to live there. You have a kid that you have no childcare to take care of. Like you will, there are
Right.
many, many reasons why that is hard. And if you're also eating, fast food, which is often the most economical, you don't feel like going running. You feel disgusting, right?
Yeah.
So I think that like the bigger challenge is less I mean, the expertise piece is part of it, but it's all of these structural things that make it much, much harder for individual people to take the actions that most of them know they should be taking, and a lot of them want to. I mean, I'll say one more thing on that. Like, I worked on this book about fitness culture for almost 10 years, as you know. And whenever I would say to people what I was working on, and I would say, I'm a historian, right? Like, I'm not like a fitness cop or anything. And almost everybody was like, oh, I feel so bad. I should be working out, or I joined a gym.
Right.
Go. Like, everyone had this mea culpa. And that's among the people I hang
Right.
out, who are hardly the people with the least access to
Right.
stuff. And
Right.
it's hard, right? And it's
Right.
hard for reasons that are not about individual failure. And I don't see right now this administration doing much to remedy those larger structural issues or even the individual stuff. This essay I wrote that you were talking about is more about the individual stuff. That's not even there. I'm like, give me back like individualistic ideology.
Right.
It's not even there. I want to
Right.
I can bootstrap.
Right. No, I totally get that. And I think part of what your book taught me on a certain level is that fitness is a sign in many ways of something else. And our national conversation about fitness reveals other things. The kinds of things you're talking about are incredibly important. One of the things we haven't mentioned is why, if you walk down the breakfast cereal aisle, there are about three things you can buy if you don't want to be overloaded with sugar at 7 o'clock in the morning. And you've got to think that there are people in Washington, we can call them elites, who are making sure that the sugar industry doesn't get thrown under the bus just because of MAHA. You've got to think that promoting Wegovy rather than helping people get knee replacement and hip replacement surgeries before they go on Medicare, that's one of the reasons people gain weight and become unfit when they are middle aged. It's because they're in pain and they can't treat the pain. So that there is this effort to be superficial, but it's also just become so ludicrous that it's not even judgy anymore. It's just silly.
Wow.
Um, so Natalia, before we go, just tell me, what are we going to do to fix this when Trump is gone? When you are the secretary of HEW, what are you going to do?
From your words, from your lips, Claire. I think a lot of it does start absolutely with kind of federal policy, not the ones that we're
Yeah.
getting, if we're even getting any. I do still have a lot of faith in physical education as being the place worth starting. So what I would
Right.
do, I would start with kind of revamping PE and expanding PE in this
Right.
country. I say that because that is the place where most Americans will first encounter exercise. And as it
Yep.
stands now, a lot of kids are either totally alienated from it and intimidated. It makes them not want to exercise. Or if they're athletic kids, they feel like it's not worth their time, which is also silly because the things you should learn there are things that should carry you beyond your varsity athletic.
Right.
So I would say we start with that. And then we also address all of the other structural issues that just make it harder to exercise, even for people who know how and who want to.
Right.
And that starts with free rec centers and better housing and childcare and better lighting in the streets, and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Natalia Mehlman Petrzela, thank you so much for taking some time out of your afternoon to talk to us about this piece. Listeners, it is going to be linked to my Substack, Political Junkies. You can read it there. And Natalia, I hope you'll be back soon.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you for having me on and to everyone who tuned in.
Okay, friend. Bye.
Bye.